Hey y'all, my name's Angelica Rubio, State Representative for District 35, representing the city of Las Cruces, and this is a legislative update. We got this bill out last night, which was a really great news. I heard from some folks saying that was a really close vote, but to be honest, this is a bill that has been introduced time and time again. It's related to private prisons in the state, and votes have actually been a lot closer. And so I want to just say, like, this issue around having private prisons in our state to house and to detain undocumented people, I think as slowly as it's been, and it's unfortunate, but I feel like people are starting to recognize across the state that we should not be profiting off of people's bodies to support communities. Like, no, we need to actually invest in our communities and provide other avenues for economic development, not private prisons. The second bill that passed, and this was last Saturday, is the housing discrimination. This is a bill that I've been working on with a coalition of folks here in the House of Representatives, where we're trying to update the Human Rights Act here in New Mexico so that you can't just be discriminated just because of your race, your gender, and all of the other lists of things that are in the Human Rights Act, but also your source of income when it comes to paying for rent. Right now, landlords can discriminate against the type of income that you're using to pay for your rent. So there are people with Section 8 vouchers, with Social Security, with disability, veterans vouchers that sometimes landlords do decide, oh, I don't want to rent to this person because they might feel they might have an issue with this form of income. That is this under this House Bill 339 would make it illegal. You wouldn't be able to discriminate anymore. It is 14 days left in the session. The session ends March 22nd at noon. As of today, this morning, we have 2 full weeks left. A lot can happen in those 2 weeks. It may not seem like a lot of time, but a lot can happen in 2 weeks. But the issue now that our bills have passed out of the House are that now they have to go to the Senate. The Senate is a lot trickier. The Senate, in my opinion, is much more conservative when it comes to hearing legislation from the House. The housing bill, for example, that I just shared regarding the discrimination around source of income, that bill, we were told, was only going to get assigned to one committee, and it ended up getting assigned to 2 committees. So now it has to go to Senate Tax, and then if it gets out of that committee, it has to go to Senate Judiciary. Yesterday, I learned that there are rumors. I don't know if it's true. We hear this pretty much every year, that the Senate is going to stop listening to bills in committee after this weekend. Whether or not that's correct, I don't know. And not just those 2 pieces of legislation, there is such a list of House bills that we're trying to pass out that still haven't had a hearing. And so it's a bit stressful, to be quite honest, and but I think we still have enough time to push these bills through. Lastly, related to legislation, CPAC, which is Consumer and Public Affairs, it's the committee that I serve on. We met on Thursday night until 10 o'clock at night after we finished the floor session to debate 2 bills, or to hear 2 bills, one of which would have made fentanyl illegal. It would have made fentanyl life in prison if you would have had it was so broad. It was very broad. It was something that the Republicans brought forward. And another one was to expand the definition of juvenile delinquency so that we could essentially lock up young kids. Folks, I know that the crime situation here in New Mexico is scary. I hear it from community constituent folks down south where I'm from in Las Cruces. I hear it from my family members in the southeastern part of the state where I grew up in Lake Arthur and Roswell. I hear it with folks here living up north in Santa Fe and Albuquerque, and stories from what's happening in Española and folks who are unhoused. I hear this all the time around what crime is doing in our communities. And part of the reason that crime exists in our communities is because, in my opinion, it's a lack of investment in our communities. And so, what I've been seeing a lot of this session is that we're being told, or essentially told to hear bills that aren't going to help our community. In fact, I've shared this in previous posts, is that we want to criminalize people and throw them all in jail rather than providing them the things that they need, which is mental health support, behavioral health support, addiction support, jobs. Like, people need jobs. And so rather than focusing on all of those root causes of why crime has increased, and we haven't even talked about how the pandemic exacerbated all of that, like, rather than focusing on those things, we're being told to lock up 14-year-old kids. That's not what I support. And I mean, we can have that whole debate, but and we've been having it, and I just it's a hard no for me. So we ended up tabling those bills. You'll likely hear from people that we don't care about crime and all this stuff, and that's just not true. I think the philosophy is that I just don't believe that incarcerating people is how you solve these problems. It's easier to lock people up. The hard job is to actually address the root causes, and that is where people don't want to focus their time and energy on. They actually want a quick fix because elections. There's a governor's race in 2 years, and next year, and then there's the House is up for elections next year. And so everybody's just like, we got to do a quick fix. We got to do a quick fix. Meanwhile, in 10 years, we're going to be back here in the same freaking place because we're just constantly reintroducing the same pieces of legislation that actually do not work. Y'all, go back to the 90s. Tough on crime did not work. If anything, it made things worse. And we are in the situation we are in this country because of policies that Democrats pushed because they wanted to win elections. With that said, I am going to end this because it's International Women's Day, and New Mexico has elected, for the first time ever, a majority women in the House. For the last few years, I've been hearing a lot about how we need to focus our attention on the demographic of electing Latino men because we're losing Latino men. And this is now a result. The result is that now we need to just stop electing women. And I've heard it already this session, being up here in Santa Fe, talking to folks around some of the issues that a lot of us are carrying, that maybe women have had their moment in the legislature, and that we need to just go back to electing dudes. I'm here to tell you all, like, no, like, fuck that. Like, we have done a lot of work in the last more than a decade, not only here in New Mexico, but across the country, to ensure that our legislatures are as balanced and reflect the communities that we serve. And right now, because we as women and non-binary folks are driving so much of the conversation nationally, and that it's really like freaking the Republicans out. The Democrats, rather than standing their ground and going hard for their base, people like me and others, they're deciding to negotiate and concede to Republicans. This is the bigger problem that we're having, that we Democrats will concede, and you saw it with the State of the Union addresses, that they will concede more to the Republican Party than their own base. We have to have a bigger conversation about this as we leave the session this year and we leave in 2 weeks, because that is not the right strategy moving forward, especially under what we're experiencing under this administration. And where we are as New Mexicans, where we're basically a sanctuary for so many people who are facing so many problems, that is going to be brought down from this administration, and that there are leaders within our state who think that it is too risky to defend these communities at the risk of losing elections.